Thank you all for being here today. It's really wonderful to be speaking at the Bangalore International Centre. So the title of my talk is Wellness is a Journey. And before we begin this journey, you might have noticed that you were given a quiz as you walked in today. And I hope you've had a chance to complete it. If you haven't, we can spend a couple of minutes waiting. All done? Yeah, great. Oh, Vinita, you didn't get one. All right. So, wellness is a journey is a stand that I firmly take. And it's one that I invite you to share with me as I speak with you today. And it's one that's similar to the one that this gentleman is on. And I was told by a BIC member that this picture is from the Canadian Rockies. And if you notice the gentleman, he's got his hiking boot, his hiking cap, he's got a walking stick, he's got his camping gear. He's all set, right? And he's on a beautiful journey. Beautiful mountains, a languid lake, a beautiful forest. We can imagine that as he starts this journey, it's fairly easy. But we can also imagine that it's challenging as he goes forward. But his view is always going to be spectacular. And that's the point about wellness. If we're prepared, if we take the necessary precautionary steps, if we modify our lifestyles, our life experience is always going to be beautiful, even with the challenges ahead, whether they're in our health or in the rest of our lives. So John W. Travis has done a lot of work on wellness, and he defines wellness thus. Wellness is a way of life, a lifestyle you design to achieve your highest potential of well-being. What emerges from that definition is that your health is your responsibility. It's your sole responsibility. It's not the responsibility of your doctors. It's not the responsibility of your families. It's your own responsibility. And when you take charge of your health, that's when you're going to get the most out of your lives. Wellness is not just a spa appointment. I put this slide in because I've noticed that a lot of spa services are advertised as wellness services. And while it's true that a massage or a pedicure is going to make you feel better and can certainly be part of your wellness regimen, it cannot be the be-all and end-all of what you do for your wellness. I'm sure you've seen this symbol before. It's a symbol from Buddhism. It's a metaphor for the teachings of the Lord Buddha, the Dharma Chakra. And just like Buddhism has a wheel, in wellness too we have a wheel. And this is what it looks like. The wellness wheel is composed of 5 types of health. Your physical, your spiritual, your nutritional, your emotional, and your mental. When this wheel is in balance, that's when we have optimal health and well-being. When this wheel loses balance, that's when you have illness and disease. There is one thing you can do that positively and profoundly impacts all 5 types of health that compose wellness. What do you think it is? No, I'm actually asking you, what do you think it is? Discipline. Sorry? Think positive, yes. That's a good one. Exercise. Sure. Mm. Eating proper food consistently, right? Yeah. What else?
Awareness.
Awareness. Gosh, I think you guys should be up here. Sleep. Ah, Mr. Dasgupta. That's the right answer. So sleep is a single thing that you can do that impacts all 5 aspects of health simultaneously. And if that's the one thing you take back today, let it be this. If you can get regular sleep every single day, it's going to do your wellness wonders. Diminished sleep is associated with, is a risk factor for diabetes and heart disease. It affects your ability to think clearly, it affects your ability to learn, it affects your ability to interact with other people. It makes you prone to accidents while driving. And contrary to popular belief, your need for sleep does not go down as you age. As adults and after, we need the same amount of sleep throughout our lives. Yep, that was one of the questions on the quiz. So Dr. Ridhananda Malik, who is an AIMS researcher and has been researching sleep for many years, says that only about 60% of Indian adults get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And that's what most people need. And I say most because I know that there are a couple of people in this audience who get by with less and who function well with less. But you are exceptions. Most people need at least 7 hours of sleep. How not to sleep. Yeah. Light is the single most important determinant in our ability to fall asleep. Melatonin secretion is affected by light, and melatonin regulates our sleep-wake cycles. So, any screen, whether it's a TV screen or an iPad screen or an iPhone screen, when we look at it, we've suppressed our melatonin production. Therefore, if we must work, if we must watch TV, it's ideal that everything be switched off at least an hour before we go to bed. A couple of more ways that you could improve your sleep. One is sleep at the same time every night and get up at the same time every morning. Take a nice warm bath before you go to bed. It relaxes your muscles and dilates your blood vessels, making it easier to fall asleep. So we've talked about how we define wellness. Now I'm going to argue that wellness is an imperative. It's an imperative from a private health perspective for us Indians, and it's also an imperative from a public health perspective for India. India, unfortunately, has a distinction of being called the diabetes capital of the world, and we're a few years away from being called the heart attack capital of the world. There are 61 million Indians living with diabetes today, and the number is expected to reach 101 by 2030. There are 54 million Indians living with heart disease today, and a few doctors have told me these numbers are probably much greater. If nothing is done, the figure is estimated to be 223 million by 2040, according to the WHO. This is a public health crisis. It's a potential economic disaster. It's quite serious. But there's hope. And the hope that I'm focusing on today is based on a study that was done a couple of years ago, and it's called the Interheart study. It was done across countries, so it's over like 30 different countries, tens of thousands of subjects. And the most important conclusion it drew was this, that 90% of the risk of getting heart disease is attributable to factors that are preventable. The behavioral risk factors is diminished physical, nutritional, emotional, mental health that leads to heart disease. And that's in our control. So the rest of the talk is going to focus on what defines physical health, what defines nutritional health, and what defines emotional and mental health. Physical health first. To be alive is to be in motion. Your hearts are pumping constantly as I speak to you. Your lungs are expanding and contracting. Our bodies are in motion, and our bodies need to be in motion to be alive. How you decide to move is entirely your call. But move you must. So I'm going to tell you about some research now that's been done on what's called NEAT. The acronym stands for Non-Exercise Activity Thermogenesis. It's been worked on primarily by Professor James Levine and then subsequently by a bunch of other researchers across the United States. And the point he's making is that the energy that is expended when we're not exercising is far more important to our health. Leading full, vibrant lives is far more important than exercising for most human beings, because most people don't end up expending that many calories when they exercise. On an average, people expend 100 calories when they exercise, which is not much. However, how we work really impacts how many calories we expend. So this is from work done by Black et al. And if you look at the numbers, if you're doing chair-bound work, you're expending 300 calories a day, and it's somebody who's sitting all day long. If it's seated work, it's 700 calories. Seated work with movement is 1,000 calories. Standing work is 1,400 calories. And if you're doing strenuous work, manual labor, that's 2,300 calories. There's a 2,000 calorie difference between people depending on what they do for a living. Now, there are ways in which you can upregulate your NEAT, even with the sedentary lives that we lead. One is standing while talking on the phone. We're on the phone at least an hour a day. Take the stairs. Take the stairs at work, take the stairs at home, but take the stairs. Have standing meetings instead of sitting meetings. And if you're thinking these suggestions are flippant, I have two anecdotes to share with you. One is that when I was researching NEAT for a column I wrote 2 years ago on the subject, I was speaking to some NYU researchers, and they have been researching NEAT, and I said, have you incorporated any of these ideas into your workplace? And they said, yes, we have. We've moved from sitting offices to standing offices, and we have standing meetings, and we have walking meetings. And I said, what happened? They said, well, after we instituted these changes, in a couple of months, on an average, in our lab, which is about 10 people, not a big sample size, but still, people lost a couple of pounds. When I was researching NEAT, and my research usually goes for about 3 weeks, I lost a kilo, everything else being equal. So it does work. All of this stuff adds up. Exercise. 3 important forms of exercise: aerobic exercise, strength training, and yoga. aerobic exercises, the repetitive movements of your large muscle groups, of your arms, legs, and your hips. We're talking about cycling, swimming, walking, running. The benefits. It strengthens our heart muscles while improving its pumping efficiency. It improves our mood and increases our memory. It helps manage blood sugar and blood pressure levels. It helps keep excess pounds at bay. It increases our stamina and increases our immunity to coughs and colds. What do we need to do? Well, the American Heart Association advises 30 minutes of aerobic activity 5 times a week. The most recent research tells us that even 20 minutes of a high-low intensity workout can give us the same benefit. However, and this is important, an expert panel that was run by Dr. Anoop Mishra, who is a diabetologist and runs the Diabetes Center at Fortis in Delhi, says that for Indians, we need to exercise 50 minutes 5 times a week. Strength training. It's just as important as aerobic exercise. What are the benefits? Increases our bone density, reducing the risk of osteoporosis. Stronger skeletal muscles mean stronger hearts. This is recent research where they found that people who regularly lift weights actually have stronger cardiac muscles, and that protects their hearts from heart disease. It also helps reduce blood pressure and improves our balance and stability so that we're less likely to fall, and even if we do fall, we're less likely to hurt ourselves. What do we need to do? Well, weight train 2 to 3 times a week. Start with light weights and add more as you get stronger. And 8 to 10 different exercises for the major muscle groups. Yoga. A practice for both the mind and body. It's a physical and a spiritual practice. These days, mostly the physical is emphasized with yoga, but it's extremely important. And even the simplest exercises, when done well, can have profound impact on our wellness, because this is the only form of exercise that massages our internal organs. And research shows that it can help reduce blood pressure and help us increase our stress threshold so that we're less likely to get lifestyle diseases like depression and heart disease. And even if we have these diseases already, it can help us manage these diseases better. And we don't need to do complex asanas to gain their benefit. So the benefits include stress relief, improved immunity, better flexibility, a reduction in blood pressure, blood lipids, and blood sugar. This has been found in people who have pre-diabetes and pre-heart disease. It's a syndrome called the metabolic syndrome. And in people with metabolic syndrome, research has shown that yoga, consistent yoga, can help reduce their numbers. Improved intuition is another one with yoga. And I'm going to look at it more with you in the mental health section. If you can't do anything else, if your lifestyle currently doesn't permit anything else, then walk for exercise. It improves blood circulation, it improves our digestion, improves our mood, and it's the easiest to do. You don't need a gym, you don't need an instructor, a teacher. And stand while talking on the phone, since we're on the phone quite a bit these days. Moving on to nutritional health. If there was a new disease that was 10% as destructive as most people's diets, there would be a worldwide search for a cure. That's how toxic some people's diets can be. And here's a list of diseases that are related to poor nutrition. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, stroke, indigestion, constipation, allergies, headaches, learning disabilities, hyperactivity, lethargy, skin disorders. In all of these conditions, poor nutrition plays a role. It may not be the only factor, but it plays a role. So this slide is going to shock you. These are substances that are prohibited today, but were legally marketed in the past. Heroin was marketed by Bayer. Cocaine tooth drops for children to prevent or protect them against toothaches. Camel cigarettes were marketed as something that doctors smoked more and therefore was somehow more healthy. I'm hopeful that 20 years from now, people will be just as shocked to see ads for packet chips, aerated drinks, sugared cereal, French fries from fast food restaurants, and chicken nuggets from fast food restaurants, and processed food like this. It's just as toxic and addictive. So what does healthy eating look like? The Harvard School of Public Health came up with what they call the healthy eating plate. As you can see, it's a really simple diagram. And 2/3 of the plate is vegetables, 1/3 fruit, 1/4 whole grains, and 1/4 healthy protein. Essentially, if half your plate for every meal is fresh fruits and vegetables, you're doing really well. That's something to keep in mind. There are 3 macronutrient deficiencies that are rampant amongst Indian adults. Vitamin D, research tells us that 60 to 80% of urban Indian adults are deficient. Vitamin B12, we don't have the numbers, but when we talk to clinicians and psychiatrists in particular, it seems to be a common enough problem. Psychiatrists in India tell me that often people get misdiagnosed with depression when they actually just have a vitamin B12 deficiency. And they end up being put on antidepressants. Well, all they needed was a vitamin B12 shot. Iron. 55% of adult women are anemic in India. A large proportion of that is iron deficient anemia. So my recommendation is that you get your iron and your vitamin B12 and vitamin D levels checked annually if you're a woman, and your vitamin D and vitamin B12 levels checked annually if you're a man. Ideally during the winter months, because that's when vitamin D levels are at their lowest. Some other suggestions: eat for lightness, eat food that sits lightly in your stomach. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It knows what works for you, what doesn't. Stay away from excess sugar and starch, and salt. I should have mentioned that. Sugar is pro-inflammatory, and inflammation is known to play a role in every single lifestyle disease, from cancer to diabetes to depression. This is something I tell my children. Remember, if your food can go bad, it's good for you. If your food can't go bad, it's not good for you. If there's an ingredient on the food label that you can't recognize, your body won't either. And one bad meal won't make you fat, just like one good meal won't make you healthy. So it's about consistency. Emotional and mental health. The energies that fill our hearts and our minds influence our bodies, those around us, and move the world at large. And I'm going to share the results of a really exciting study. So Ellen Langer is a Harvard psychologist who did this study in the 1970s. It's called the counterclockwise study. And what she did was she took a group of 70-year-old men and she split them into two. Let's call them Group A and Group B. She and her graduate students. She put Group A in a retreat where they were told to reminisce about the past for a week. So they were to enjoy themselves, relax, and reminisce about the past. Group B had a slightly different mandate. They were required to, yes, reminisce about the past, but they were also given paraphernalia, visual cues to make them think that they were in the past 20 years ago. So there were magazines, newspapers, there were movies from the past. They were only allowed to talk about events that had happened 20 years ago. They were also made to look after themselves. So they had to cook for themselves, clean for themselves. Remember that some of these people came in wheelchairs when they enrolled into the study. A week later, the results were fascinating. So in Group A, that was reminiscing about the past, their physical and their physiological markers hadn't really changed. But in Group B, it was very interesting. Their muscle strength improved, their eyesight improved, their hearing improved, their mental alertness improved. It was like the mind had told the body that it was younger, and the body followed suit. Here's another example of the power the mind can have over the body. The placebo effect. It's a well-documented pharmacological effect. It's used all the time to measure whether a drug or a medicine is effective in clinical trials. And what it is essentially is the mind telling the body that it's getting a medicine and the body heals itself. This happens in 17 to 90% of people. The body gets a sugar pill, the body believes it's got the medicine, and it heals. Not for all diseases, but it does happen. Optimism. It's a profoundly powerful mental tool. People who are optimistic live longer. People who are optimistic and have heart disease live longer than people who are pessimistic and have heart disease, all other things being equal. They also have less colds and flus, they are less prone to stress, they're less prone to depression, which is not unexpected. How do we cultivate optimism? Bring humor into our lives. Exercise. It's a great mood elevator. Surround yourself with positive people. And don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to someone else. Be kind to yourself. Intuition is another really powerful tool that we all have. We possess it, and it's unfortunate that it's not something that's honed in schools and colleges, because it really should be. It's a very interesting study that was done a while back by psychologists, where they took some subjects and they made them play a game with two sets of cards. The object of the game was to win as much money as possible. What the subjects didn't know was that the two packs of cards behave differently. So pack A would give you large losses and large gains, while pack B would give you incremental gains and no losses. by drawing about 50 cards on an average, the subjects could tell the researchers that there was something wrong with pack A. They could tell, right? The rational brain had figured that out. By drawing about 70 cards, they could tell how there was a problem. They could tell that pack A was giving larger losses and larger gains. But what's fascinating is that at the 10th card, 10th or the 11th card, the sweat glands of their palms would open when they reached out from a card from pack A. And subsequent to that, they subconsciously chose more cards from pack B. So their bodily intuition told them to stay away from pack A, and they were choosing cards from pack B. But it took them 50 cards for their rational mind to figure it out. Wouldn't it be great if we could harness that information more quickly for our health, for our well-being, for the choices we make in business, all of it? And coming to our health, so if there's a gut feeling and you're in the doctor's office that something is wrong, please share it with your doctor, even if it doesn't make rational sense. It doesn't have to. There could be something very important there that you are not taking account for. Thought patterns can hurt us. A lot of the pain that we are dealing with is really only in our thoughts. So what do we do about it? How do we diminish that? How do we change that? Well, there is an antidote. And the antidote is meditation. There's enough research to show us that meditation reduces our blood pressure, it reduces our heart rate, and researchers at the Weizmann Institute in Israel have looked at the brain of meditators, long-term meditators. And during meditation, what happens is that the electrical activity of the brain actually goes down. And that corresponds with a reduction in the number of thoughts and a calm mood. Altruism and wellness. Doing good for other people, doing things for other people, giving to other people, lights up the same part of our brain as when we get something. So giving and getting is actually giving us the same reward in our heads. Researchers have found that, and particularly in people with depression, it helps them to help other people. The interaction with other human beings, as well as the act of actually making a difference in someone else's life, makes them feel better. And last, I'm going to bring you to one of my favorite musical artists, John Lennon, a poet, and he has many quotes attributed to him, but here's one. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. Thank you. If you have any further questions past the talk, please don't hesitate to write me at sujata.kelkar@gmail.com. My website, wellnesssutra.in, has my previous columns for the Mint, as well as more work on my work. And here's the answer key, if anyone's interested. And I'll take questions. Right.
Sometimes we just cannot fall asleep. Why?
If you're very tired the whole day,
Yeah, you just
sometimes
cannot.
you just can't fall
Yeah.
asleep. Why? I think because you're overstimulated. Your brain is probably overstimulated. Meditation really helps to fall asleep because it quietens the mind. You should try that before you go to bed.
This
Yes, but it's, yeah. If it's a question of physical tiredness, then the warm bath should help. Mhm. Sure.
And warm bath and meditation together could be great.
I think it'll, yeah. I think you'll be knocked out then. Sure.
During the course of your talk, you said
Yes.
that when you want to talk on the phone, keep standing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've heard many times from many people
Mm-hmm.
that if you stand for a longer time,
Mm-hmm.
you get the diffuse right.
Yes, that's true, but so typically when people stand, they end up doing a little bit of a walk, like a pace. And research has actually shown that the pace helps us think better. So it's a good strategy for keeping our minds alert, pacing the floor as we talk. And if you'll notice that we all tend to do that. When we're having an important conversation,
You forget everything.
and you pace the floor. Yep.
Now, talking about intuition,
Yes.
is the fact that ladies are more intuitively alert? I've heard this, I don't know if it's true.
I've heard this too, but I haven't seen the research to back it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I just haven't seen it.
But here I would like to say,
Mm.
regarding the intuition, it's not a gift, it's the reflection of knowledge. Right?
I think it's something that every human being has. And it's a question of honing it and using it and believing it. And trusting it more than believing it. Trusting it.
Archie, what's your take on these supplements, vitamin, all of the supplements that are available?
Yeah, I believe in supplements because the food that we eat is no longer enriched the way it used to be in my grandfather's time. So I just wrote a column on magnesium, and magnesium in the soil is depleted significantly, which means that the magnesium in the fruits and vegetables we eat is diminished significantly. And therefore there's no choice but to take supplements. Unless we're living on a farm and eating organic food, and breathing clean air. We worry about taking an artificial supplement, but we forget that we are surrounded by stressors. We live in an extraordinarily artificial way. We live in buildings, we take cars to drive, we travel all over the world, we eat all kinds of cuisines. These are all stressors for our body that we subject our bodies to on a regular basis. So taking that chemical supplement is actually trying to balance out the deficiencies that are arising as a result of that lifestyle.
There's a lot of controversy on the issue of calcium.
That's because the calcium, magnesium, potassium balance needs to be maintained. So it's very important that when we take calcium, we take it at a 1:1 ratio with magnesium. Even if it's not 1:1, even if it's 2:1, that still doesn't happen in most supplements that we take. It becomes complicated depending on the macronutrients we're talking about. But to blanketly assume that we shouldn't take supplements is not a good idea. So the nutraceutical industry needs to come up with better supplements. Till then, we need to gain the knowledge and the insight and take what we need in isolated forms, if required. But that's the problem with calcium. That it upsets. One of the problems with calcium is that it upsets the magnesium balance.
It can cause stones also in the kidney sometimes, the excess calcium.
So it's a question of the amount as well, right? I mean, if you already have enough calcium in your diet, then you don't need to take it. So everybody can't possibly need it. But to say that we don't need it at all is also false.
If it is so universal that Indian women have vitamin D deficiency and are mildly anemic. Do you think the guidelines are wrong? Maybe, sometimes you wonder about these guidelines. And part two of my question, I guess, is, have we ever drunk 6 to 8 glasses of water and eaten 8 types of vegetables and fruits or whatever? And sometimes you just wonder about these guidelines.
Sure, absolutely. So, when you say guidelines, are you suggesting that people need to fortify foods? Is that the point you're making?
No, I'm saying that, maybe that our vitamin D and our levels are fine if it's so universal. I mean, I'm just questioning how they set these guidelines, the vitamin
Sure.
and the vitamin D, because it
No.
seems to be so universal for Indian women.
Yes. No, but it's universal in Afghanistan as well, because women are in burqas. That doesn't mean
I think it's universal world over about vitamin D deficiency.
Well, the thing is, you need to have a third of your body uncovered when you go out in the sun. It never happens in India. Furthermore, given that our cities are so polluted, we're not getting the kind of sunlight we need. So it's a combination of factors.
It's also true of Indian women who live abroad. They also have the same deficiencies.
Well, it's across the board though. It's a problem amongst women in general.
Genetic.
And also, I think particularly in Indian women, because we tend to be more sort of covered. How many Indian women do you know who wear shorts in Bangalore? And that's what you really need to do to get it naturally. So,
No, people who are in the sun 5 hours a day, few days a week, also are vitamin D deficient.
yeah, it's too polluted. It's too polluted.
But I was told it's only the top part of your body which absorbs the vitamin D that the sun,
No. It's not a question of which part of the body.
and you have to be, as you said, without clothes.
But isn't there a difference between rural and urban dwellers? I was told that rural dwellers don't have so much vitamin D deficiency, whereas urban dwellers have it, and that's because of the pollution.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So for people who are traveling a lot, taking flights at different times, different time zones, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would suggest based on all the work that you've done to, you can't sleep and wake up at the same time because it's not possible. Food changes depending on where you are. So what are the practical 3 or 4 suggestions you would have?
Meditation, yoga, both you can do anywhere, anytime. And eating for lightness. Eat foods that feel light. Don't stress your digestion. Last question.
What about water? How much quantity generally of water is
Yeah, there's this whole, that was I think part of her question, this whole 6 to 8 glasses of water. I think it includes liquids that you take in, so it doesn't have to be pure water. And the test I told my children this, it's basically the color of your urine. So the color of your urine is pale, you're doing fine. If it's dark, you need to drink more water. Simple test. There was one more question, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, you said Indians need 50 minutes of exercise against the 20.
30 minutes.
Yeah, why is that? Is it because of our diet?
Lifestyle, yeah. And we have genetic factors that predispose us to heart disease and diabetes. We come from a country where famines were common. So our bodies will quickly make fat. And that becomes a problem for us now. Sure.
What about multivitamin tablets? Do you prescribe that?
No, I can't prescribe, I'm not a doctor, I'm a scientist.
Okay.
But I don't believe in multivitamin tablets. I believe in supplementing what your body needs. Because your body doesn't need everything. And we're all eating decent diets. So I would rather find out what is deficient and supplement that. Okay, thank you so much for coming.